Hey guys, it's Rachel Bourne from the Social Anxiety Solutions team, and I'm here to present to you part 2 of Tom Woodfin's interview with Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dating Essentials for Men. And these are 2 awesome interviews. Really, it was one long interview, but we cut it up into 2 because there's a lot of great content and really a lot to absorb, but very entertaining. And I found it very valuable personally, not realizing so much that, I was a nice girl. And I think there's a lot to this, and this is really worth digging into if this is something that you're dealing with, or maybe you're on the other end, and it's useful information. In this interview, Tom and Dr. Glover talk about things we mistake for love and why that is. Some things that we may have somehow paired together, like this means that I'm loved, this means I'm lovable, and it not really being based on reality. And that's something definitely worth looking at. Letting go of bad patterns, letting go of bad relationships, and letting in what you actually want in your life. So if you have that same repeat, same bad pattern, the same bad relationships or personalities coming into your life, that is something to address and take a look at and break up that pattern. Because if you're not getting what you want and you keep inviting the same negative traits into your life, that's something you can do something about. You want to address your own unique story, your own unique needs. So we get into that. Establishing boundaries to invite love, even though that feels like something counterintuitive if you're a nice guy or a nice girl. The value of boundaries. The painful outcomes when you don't have boundaries. Maybe you're taken advantage of, or maybe you are very cautious about bringing people into your life. There's a number of negative reactions that you can start to have because people will start using you and taking advantage of you. How to fearlessly follow the boundaries that you set. So you can't just set boundaries and then, just pick and choose when you want to use them. Follow your own boundaries that you set, kind of the integrity of that. Recovering from nice guy syndrome. So what's the outlook? What's the outlook look like for you? Not riding in the middle management as the nice guy. So definitely kind of relate to that one. Not really bringing your A game, like doing just enough to not rock the boat, but maybe not really stepping out of your comfort zone and being your best potential, and how you can actually overcome that and bring your A game and live your full potential. Address the looming fear of conflict. So this is a big piece for people that are nice, fearing conflict, fearing confrontation. And so actually addressing that and how to do that. How to eliminate the drama from your story and really kind of take the sting out of your relationships and the sting out of the stories in your life, and what you can do to stop contributing to the drama in your life and really uplift it. Where you can go for more help and support on this topic. And then in conclusion, breaking through challenges like social anxiety and not identifying yourself as being a socially anxious person, and like how to break out of your comfort zone. So a lot of really great content here. If you missed the first one, go back and listen to that one first and come back here and leave your comments and enjoy.
What do you think the relationship between boundaries and something like compassion, or if you have good strong boundaries and you can really then it's almost like the opposite of neediness. I'm able to give without, I would say compassion, a good definition of it is I'm able to give without needing anything in return. It's like I'm just pouring good energy outwards, and there seems to be a lot of power in that as well. It seems like there's almost like a personal power to be enjoyed from that level of that kind of level of compassion, I suppose, or that level of being able to hold your own boundaries and know what's okay and what's not okay and who you are. I don't know if there's a question to come from that.
Well,
but
I tell you what, I actually have two answers to go to your non-question.
Okay, all right, great.
I'm a pro at this. I'm a pro at giving answers. So let's kind of put boundaries over here for a minute and kind of back up just a little bit to something you said that I wanted to say something more about. It goes back to what we were talking about to the not needy. And then we'll come back to the boundaries because I agree with what you're saying about them. Another piece that I've really been looking at a lot just recently in my own life personally, but also seeing it with other people. And a lot of it goes back to this piece I was talking about of the cooperative reciprocal systems, is that a lot of us, to rip off an old country song, go looking for love in all the wrong places.
Right.
Because we're mistaken what love is. Okay. And, you know, without, you know, going way off a field of trying to define love, most of us get mistaken about what is love. And usually the mistakes we make about what is love usually go back to our childhood, go back to our family, of the inadequate ways that our parents loved us. Now, so remember, going back to Scott Peck's definition of road less traveled, that the way that parents instill a sense of lovableness in a child is by being attentive, responding to their needs in timely, judicious, and I add consistent ways. That is what makes a child feel lovable and valued. Now, Peck says this, and I agree with this. I've been a marriage and family therapist for over 30 years. So I've worked with a lot of families. I've raised kids. And for example, you can tell a child, I love you, 1,000 times a day. And if their needs are not met in a timely, judicious, and consistent way, the words will mean nothing. They will not feel loved. Right? You can tell a child, oh, you are so amazing, you're so great, you're so special. You can tell them that 1,000 times a day. But if their needs are not met in this timely, consistent, judicial way, they're not going to feel loved. It's the words and the feelings won't connect. So what I think happens is we go out looking for love, and we get mistaken what it is. We think somebody wanting to have sex with us is love. Right. Or somebody wanting to tell us their problems is love. Especially, these are true for nice guys, because I thought if a woman wanted to tell me her problems, I was valuable. I was special. Or if she, wanted to have sex with me, I was special. Then I came to find out, no, women will tell their problems to anybody. And, a woman wanting to have sex with me has nothing to do with my lovableness. So we might go looking for appreciation or affection or validation or success or, have a great body or make a lot of money, thinking all of these things translate into love, but they don't. They don't fill the bucket in any consistent way, but we think they should. So which means we just got to keep trying to do those things that will make us feel lovable. Losing weight will never make another person love you more. But it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you think, well, if I just lose weight and get in good shape, right, then I'll be more loved. No, you don't get any more loved by losing weight. But we think or if I just get that promotion, or if I just make enough money, or if I drive a nice enough car, I'll get more love. Or if I just listen to enough women talk about their problems, or enough people want to have sex with me, then I'll feel loved. But then you find out you don't, right? So my sense is, going back to us consciously creating these cooperative reciprocal systems, that once we start doing that, we can actually start asking, well, what are some of the basic needs and wants that I have? It's not about love, it's about basic needs and wants. And so, for example, you mentioned sex and affection. Well, okay, what can I do to increase, the frequency that I have good sex? Or what can I do to be, put myself in a situation to receive physical affection? We actually start asking ourselves those questions and taking steps that will help make that happen. But if we just focus on, well, if I just get laid, then everything will be okay. And it actually never works that way. But the more we're filling up all those buckets and not mistaking affection for love or sex for love, but if we're consistently meeting our needs in a way that feels valuable, we don't get so dependent on needing the sex or needing the affection. But another piece, and this is part of the boundary piece that we'll segue into, is that if we never invite affectionate people into our life, we're not going to feel much affection. If we never invite people who like sex and like having sex with us into our life, we're not going to get much sex. And it sounds so maybe simple and logical, but as a nice guy, I spent most of my adult life inviting women into my life who didn't like sex and trying to get them to want to have sex with me. I grew up in a family that was amazingly non-affectionate. My mother just turned 84. My father's been dead for 10 years. And my mother is probably the least affectionate human being I know. And when I try to be around her as much as I can, I live a couple thousand miles away, but she had a stroke back in November, so I try to visit her fairly frequently. I give her hugs all the time. I tell her I love her all the time. I send her text messages and say I love you. I send her little hearts. And I get such a kick out of my wife, because my wife, who is the most affectionate human being I've ever met, will even acknowledge, no, your mother isn't very affectionate. Your mother doesn't, but she said, but I watch. Every time you hug your mother, she loves it. And every time you say, I love you to your mother, she says, I love you back. And so I've just let go of any covert contract, and I just give affection freely to my very non-affectionate mother. And just know that, okay, what I did is because that felt normal when I was a younger person to be around non-affectionate people, is that I tended to recreate that in my life and then wonder why nobody ever was affectionate with me. Right. Well, because I kept inviting people into my life, or not, who weren't particularly affectionate. And when I decided that, okay, I like affection. I like people who like to hold hands and kiss and say I love you and hug and, be affectionate. Then all of a sudden, I started inviting those people into my life. And as I said, my wife is the most affectionate human being I know. And it's just her language of love to receive and express physical affection. And it's like, I'm in heaven because I love it as well. But I had to invite somebody into my life that was actually physically affectionate. If I kept inviting people like my mother into my life, I'd keep thinking, what's wrong with me? How come nobody wants to be affectionate with me?
Perpetuate the pattern.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with my lovableness. So we'll go back, fill your bucket up with all these resources, and invite people into your life who want to give to you in the way that you want to receive, and then work on whatever issues you have around receiving, which I've had to do as well, because I'm not a very good receiver. It makes me anxious or feel guilty when people do nice things for me. Yeah. I've had to consciously work on that.
Right. Is that something that touches the kind of the unworthiness core? Like, I don't deserve this kind of love or this kind of affection. It's like, maybe I really want it and I really crave it, but then when I get close to it, then I start to, all of these walls shoot up, like maybe I'm not worthy of this kind of affection or worthy of getting even the things that I want.
Well, there can be a lot of layers to it, I think. Worthiness is one. It's not so much the card I play emotionally. I think my cards around something like that, getting my needs met, are more like, if you give to me, I'll owe you something.
Right.
Or if I have needs, that makes me too much like my father, who was a self-centered ass, and I don't want to be a self-centered ass, so I'll try not to have needs. So I got value out of being needless and wantless. So now, because I don't have needs and wants, you should value me because I'm not, the self-centered ass. So it's not so much for me that I feel worthless. That is true, I know, for a lot of people. And we all have our own stories that get played out, but we have to address those stories. So for example, when I, in therapy years ago, when I realized, okay, I'm not a very good receiver. And I'll give you a couple examples of a couple practices that I worked on. One is probably 20 years ago when I was in my second marriage, and that's when I started working on my nice guy issues. I was the giver, the whole covert contract, always giving gifts and nice things to my wife. And I remember one year I gave her a teddy bear for Valentine's Day. And she didn't seem to have, strong response to it one way or another. And I asked her, well, did you like the teddy bear? And she said, well, did you get that for me or get it for you? Did you give it to me for me or for you? And I had to think about it. And I thought, well, I did put a lot of time into it. I looked and searched for the perfect teddy bear. I thought you would really love it. You'd really be appreciative of me. And I said, I guess it probably was much more for me than it was for you. And she goes, well, that's that hose. That's that needy hose. And because of that needy hose, I just needed her to love it and appreciate it because I worked so hard to find the perfect teddy bear.
Right.
Yeah. And she said, so because of that, I don't know. I can't really feel anything about it. So we were in like a therapy group at the time, a couples therapy group. So we talked about that. And so out of that process, I made a decision to go on a giving moratorium. So for 1 year, talked about this with my then wife. For 1 year, I did not give her any gifts at all. No surprises, no Mother's Day cards, no birthday gifts, no Christmas, nothing. And every time I had the impulse to like buy her something or give her something or do something for her, I had to buy myself something or do something for me or give myself something. And that, that may sound like a crazy assignment, but it transformed me in that then my giving became much more loving and judicious, not just caretaking, like love me, love me, love me, because I gave you all this great stuff. And it started filling my own bucket up. I am one of my own cooperative reciprocal systems, right? I take charge of filling my bucket up. If I need something, I get it, right? So that helped me practice receiving by actually me giving to me rather than giving to others. Another experience I had, when after I got divorced in like 2003 and started dating, I dated a woman for a while. I met her because she sold me shoes. So she worked in a nice department store. And we started dating. She came over to my apartment one day, and I'd done some laundry and left my clean clothes out on my couch. And she just walked in the door and just started folding my laundry. And I said, wait, you don't need to fold my laundry. Stop. She goes, oh, she goes, I actually like folding clothes. I'm really good at it. She says, remember, I work in retail fashion sales. I fold clothes all the time. She says, I'm good. And I said, okay. I thought, okay, wait a minute. She wants to give. It makes her feel good. I need to practice receiving. So I let her fold my laundry. And so after that, consciously, every time I did laundry, I left the clean clothes out on the couch, knowing that as a gift to her and as a challenge to me. That was hard to do, actually. It was hard to leave the clothes out, kind of like, okay, my clothes are here. Hold them now. And she never like, why do you do that? She liked doing it. She said, I won't put them away, but I'll leave them in little stacks here, like on your couch or your bed. And I said, that's okay. I won't put them away either, because every time I see those stacks, I feel loved. And I did. I felt loved, but I had to let her do that. Right?
Right, yeah.
If I didn't let her do it, I wouldn't get that sense of, that feels good when I look at those little stacks of neatly folded clothes. That was her expressing love for me.
But it's a kind of a love that she's expressing that she feels good to do. It's not like, because the kind of expression you were talking about before, and I think this is an important distinction to make, is that when you bought the teddy bear, it's like that was your way of expressing love, but you needed something in return for it. Yeah. It wasn't just like you did it because, hey, this is great and I can give this and I want to do it and I don't really care if she likes it or not. It's like I really, really want her validation or approval, whereas the girl folding the clothes is like she just loves folding clothes and wants to show her affection that way. And she's not looking for a compliment or anything like that.
And as you see the difference, one's a covert contract, one isn't. One's freely given with no strings attached, one has lots of strings attached.
Yeah.
And so the point is if we want to experience love, we have to practice receiving. We have to practice letting people in, letting people love us, which we can segue then into boundaries, and which is a great subject. And I did not even know what a boundary was till I was in my 30s, in my second marriage, and already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy before I'd ever heard the term boundary. And I mentioned that when I started working in therapy, going to therapy, to figure out why me being a nice guy didn't make my wife appreciate me more. The very first session I went to with a therapist I worked with for a while, very first session, she taught me about boundaries. She put a little string out on the ground, started talking about personal space and how boundaries work. And it's like, man, did she like just know I needed that? Or did she do that with like every client in the first session? But I did need it. And what I tell people around boundaries, Personal boundaries aren't about trying to get anybody else to be different. They're about getting us to be different. And healthy boundaries actually invite other people into higher consciousness. They're not just a matter of saying, stop, or don't do that, or, whatever. And the most important piece for me that I teach people around boundaries is that boundaries are what allow people to get close to us. Now, for example,
Interesting.
I tell people, I'll come back and give an illustration of that. I tell people, you're an adult. You get to be the decider of who comes into your space, what they get to do while they're in your space, how long they get to stay, when it's time for them to leave. You are as an adult, you're the gatekeeper of your space. That's what adults do. Children don't do that because they're little and everybody else is bigger. So the big people get to do whatever they want to the little people. And since we were all little people at one time, we grow up being boundaryless because nobody ever taught us. You can say no, you can say stop, you can say here's what I want. So, and because if it wasn't what the big people wanted, they'd say shut up or spank you or smack you or ignore you and do what they wanted to do. Yeah, whatever. So when we get to be adults, we have to learn to set boundaries. Now, I tell people boundaries are like, if you're driving in your car, you're on a highway. They are the stop lights, the stop signs, the yield signs, the speed limits, the lines or the markers on the road. They are the things that allow a lot of cars to coexist in close proximity without crashing into each other all the time. Okay? Boundaries are a good thing. They help manage how people can coexist with each other. So, for example, boundaries are what allow people to get close to us. Because if you think about it, if you don't have boundaries, if you have no consciousness of personal boundaries, your choices are either to let people come in and do whatever they want to you, which could be abusive, or they might use you or hurt you, or you got to build really big walls to keep them away from you, or you have to become really unavailable and socially isolated. Those are basic three choices. Let people hurt you, build big walls that don't let anybody get close to you, or be socially isolated. Those are your choices. But boundaries allow people to get close to you because you can decide, yeah, those people, I don't want them so close to me, but this person, I do. This person, they can get real close to me. I'll get naked with this person, or I'll reveal myself to this person. But even with this person, I'm not going to let them hurt me or scold me or be critical of me or shame me. If they do, I'll need to say to them, hey, no, you don't get to shame me, or you don't get to be critical of me. Or if you keep doing that, you won't get to hang around me. Or even like, okay, I've hung around this person for a little while now. I need some space. I need my own time. I need to go hang out with some other people, or I need to go work. You can say, okay, it's time for that is us using our boundaries to like direct traffic to where we can let people close, let them in. We can move closer, move further. We have groups of people around us, one person, we can be alone, all of those things. And there's a fluidity to it that you don't have if you're just letting everybody come in and abuse you, or if you just have a big wall built up, or if you're just isolating yourself and avoiding people altogether. So the boundaries are, and it may take a lifetime to really get good at setting them. I'm still learning how to set them well after 25 years of practicing. But they are beautiful in that they do let people get close to you and let you feel safe enough to be vulnerable and open with people.
No, it's interesting. It kind of takes me to a metaphor I heard once of something like the kids can play in the playground because they have a wall around the playground. It's like the safe zone. It's the container that they can go in and just do whatever they want. And they know that, the outside isn't going to come and consume them or swallow them. I think
I've heard that same metaphor and I love it. I don't know I don't know if any of these examples you hear are ever accurate, but it's like, there's a playground with a fence around it and the kids played in the entire playground. They'd walk right up next to the fence. Yeah. There was a busy highway out there, people walking by, but they felt safe. And somebody thought, well, kids don't need fences. Fences are bad for kids. So somebody came and took the fence down on the playground. And then the kids all played real close to each other in the middle of the playground and never ventured out anymore. And whether that's a true story, I was a preacher for 8 years. And so, preachers tell lots of stories that may or may not be true, but they make a point, So, people do feel safe when we have boundaries. And people, a lot of times working with nice guys, when I talk about boundaries, nice guys have this fear. Well, if I set a boundary with my girlfriend or my wife or my mother, then they're going to have this big negative reaction. They might.
Fear.
Yeah, they might. But often they don't. And sometimes they push against it or resist it a little bit because it's new, it's unexpected. And once they get used to it, they go, oh, yeah, that does make sense. You know, I shouldn't just drop in unannounced, or, you know, I shouldn't tell him he's a worthless excuse for a human being. You know, maybe I should stop doing that. And sometimes people do just keep pushing through them. And I call them professional boundary invaders. And my advice is, if over time you start setting clear, loving, conscious, inducing boundaries, and people like keep attacking you, like you're doing something wrong, like you're victimizing them for having a boundary that says, no, stop. I suggest you don't hang around those people. And that's part of setting boundaries as well, is deciding there's certain people on this planet that don't make your life better, and you're better off not hanging around them. And unfortunately, sometimes those people are mom or dad or a sibling or a person you're married to. But sometimes it is better to get away from those people. Yeah,
well, it's interesting that this thought about boundaries, because I think one of the things, the way we're talking, I can relate it very much to the dynamic between like order and chaos or something like that, where on the outside of the fence there is all kinds of chaos, and then there's a little bit of order that kind of keeps it neat and tidy. And one of the things that you tend to find with people who have good boundaries and strong boundaries is that they just feel solid. It's like, you know where you stand with them. There's not this this kind of amorphous, like, well, am I safe here? If I push down here, do I have something to stand on? And it's just like, maybe that's where this feeling of compassion can emanate from them, or you just feel a sense of, I don't know, there's some sense of solidarity, or like they're honest, they're truthful. And I think this is something that nice guys typically struggle with quite a lot, because of the shame and fear of, and if I do this, if I set these boundaries, maybe I'm not going to be loved in the way that I want to be loved, or something like that.
I think I think it's a really good analysis on your part, that having those boundaries, having our reciprocal systems, valuing ourselves, taking good care of ourselves, really opens us up to love more deeply, to have greater compassion. Because, like, for example, I hear this frequently when people find out I've written a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, you know, that I teach men to be not nice. And people go, but you actually seem like a nice guy. You know, you seem, you know, like a decent human being. And I said, well, I would hope that is your impression of me, is that I'm a decent human being. I hope that as you're just experiencing me having a conversation or walking the planet, that your impression is that this person's a decent human being. Mm-hmm. And of course, the distinction I make between that and the nice guy goes back to the nice guy's covert contracts, to his toxic shame, to his giving to get, to his trying to be something he's not, to be loved, to hiding things about him. That's the nice guy in capital letters, capital N, capital G. But I would hope that doing what I call nice guy recovery will make you more loving, more compassionate, more open, more approachable, more generous, and just improve who you are. Now, I hate to even use that word, because about 2 years ago, my publisher said, you know, we want to put out an updated version of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And they said, do you want to revise it or add anything? I said, no, not really. I'll just write some more books. And I said, but let's just like clean it up, you know, clean up any typos and, you know, anything. I'll write a new dedication. And how about I write a foreword for it? And so in the foreword, I wrote about what I'd learned in the last 15 years, both in my own personal life and working with nice guys. And I concluded the foreword that, really something that I saw even more clearly when I wrote the book 20 years ago, that recovery from the nice guy syndrome is not becoming a different person. It's not about becoming a better person. It's not about becoming a more lovable person. It's about becoming more you.
Yeah,
it's about discovering you, embracing you, loving you. You know, putting you out there into the world, warts and all, imperfections and all, human frailties and all, and loving every bit of yourself. So I would hope that as people are doing the nice guy recovery, it's not like, and ironically, when I was shopping the book to get it published 25 years ago, a lot of publishing companies said, "Oh, we like the book, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book, especially one that tells them they're kind of a loser." And I said, you don't know the men I work with. The men I work with really do want to be good people. That's why they're trying hard to be good, because they want to be good people. Unfortunately, it's coming from a paradigm that says I'm flawed and broken and unlovable, so I got to be good. And so like a lot of nice guys, when they first get the book, they go, "Oh, yeah, I get that being a nice guy doesn't work. Now, if I become an integrated male, then I'll be loved and liked and get my needs." And it takes a little while to realize, no, let's just work at being ourselves. Let's just work at being who we are. Not everybody's going to like us. It's still going to be our job to make sure we get our needs met. We're not going to have a smooth, problem-free life. But if we can learn to like us and love us and just present that person to the world, that person's going to be trustworthy. That person's going to be authentic. That person's going to be honest. That person's going to be generous. That person's going to be open to love and giving of love. And, that's a beautiful person.
Yeah, this is the kind of people we need more of in the world, it seems. I think so you talk a little bit in the book about nice guys not fulfilling their potential. And it sounds like what you're talking about then is like there's a potential you that you could be. And if you work through this stuff, you could be more you, which is kind of what you're here to be anyway. And you can get rid of all the stuff that's not you and all the stuff that's kind of holding you back, and you being essentially you, or the most you that you could be is kind of like nice, fulfilling your potential. Yeah.
When I wrote the book, the last chapter in the book kind of hits on that. And that was actually, after my agent who took the book on said, "I really like it. I think it needs one more chapter." So we added that last chapter. And then actually while the book was in process about to be published, it was published by Barnes and Noble, who at that time tried to publish books. Now they don't even sell books because they just went bankrupt and got bought out. But anyway, back then they were the big deal. And so they had me write a class. They said, "We want you to write a class, an 8-week online class based on No More Mr. Nice Guy, but don't just rehash it. Do an application of it, and then you can teach it online on their online university." So I developed while the book was about to come out. I was working on developing this class, and I still teach it to this day, called "Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management." And the premise is that nice guys are often good at being good because we're pretty conscientious and we want approval. So we do often well enough, but we don't usually exceed and just flourish and blossom because of a number of things. Seeking people's approval. Okay. People don't usually accomplish great things while they're playing to the crowd. They accomplish great things when they're true to themselves and they bring their A game. Our fear of risk, of looking foolish, of making a mistake, of doing the wrong thing, that can get in the way. That need for external validation. Our caretaking, where we're constantly, tending to everybody else and not focusing on our passion and purpose. And a lot of it just comes down to, it's really scary to live up to your full potential. It's scary. It's kind of rare. Yeah. And nice guys tend to want to keep doing what feels safe and familiar. So doing this nice guy work, and I'm still doing this, and I'm still seeing this in my own life. Like I say, at 63, I'm watching my life continue to blossom and flourish as I get out of my own way, as I start just creating what's true to my heart and my inspiration, and I see my life keep getting better. I'm writing more books. Financially, I'm doing better. I seem to have more love in my life. I have lots of great adventures. I have lots of blessings in my life. And I think a lot of that comes because I've let them in, number one. And number two, I've been bringing my A game. I've faced a lot of fears and I've created a discipline for myself and a support system that supports me and holds me accountable for living up to my potential. It's a commitment I've made that I'm not going to let my fears and my self-limiting beliefs and my anxieties kind of subvert me from making a difference in the world. I know that No More Mr. Nice Guy has made a huge difference in the world. I know that many thousands of people have had changed lives because of it. And I've got more books in me that need written. Well, what if my fear gets in the way and I never write another book? Okay, that's fine. But when I recognize that I'm here, perhaps with a purpose or passion, I don't get real, I don't know what the right word, metaphysical about all of that. But I seem to have a certain gift and ability. And if I'm not using that and just bringing my A game to that, I'm cheating me, I'm cheating my family, I'm cheating the world.
Yeah.
So,
it's going to consume you and eat you from the inside.
Yeah, and it will. And I couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing. I get up, I write, I have my connections, I have all my reciprocal cooperative systems that bless my life. I teach, I do seminars, I do what I love, and I think it makes a difference. And I would be cheating the world if I wasn't fully embracing and doing what I love and what I was put here to do.
Well, the thing that you mentioned about the rarefied air and like being fully you and bringing fully you to the world it is a scary thing. I think people are very much afraid of that, and I think there's that very well used maxim of like, it's not the darkness but it's the light inside of you that you're afraid of. Something like that. And I think one of the things that, well, in your book there was another one of these lines where I was like, oh God. And I think it was the nice guys are wimps. And this is something that I've really tried to kind of counter my whole life. So just a brief bit about my history. I grew up and I felt very soft when I was young. Like I didn't feel like I was strong or brave or anything like that. And so as I grew up, then I moved into mixed martial arts, and I started doing kickboxing and things like that because I wanted to try to overcome this, and feel more strength, more power, and be tougher than the demons that I was fighting inside my head.
Yeah.
Well, physically it kind of worked out okay, but still inside there was this feeling of like I'm really afraid of conflict. Like I'm really afraid of confrontation and physical stuff. Now I'm getting to the point where I could maybe handle it a bit better, but still inside, like the things that terrified me were like not being approved of, these kinds of things. And so, yeah, reading this line of like nice guys are wimps, that was another one of those ones where I had to just, I had to come back to it a second time and be like, yeah, okay, just absorb that, receive it, and let it naturally do its work. It's okay to kind of do that.
And what if we could actually even just accept that and let it,
right?
Because I know at least one place in the book. Like I said, this was years and years and years ago. I still remember. I describe a scene in the book with my second wife Elizabeth, who I was with when I wrote the book. We'd had this big fight. I remember we were like in the bathroom off our master bedroom, and like, and she went off on me, which she had a tendency to do, and called me all kinds of things, and including a wimp. And she left, and she came back. I remember I stayed in the bathroom. I was kind of crying and washing my blah, 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 and she walked back in, and she did something that she almost never did in 14 years of marriage. She apologized. That was not her strong suit. And she said, I'm sorry for saying those things and for calling you a wimp. And I just looked at her and I said, actually, that was the most honest thing that you said. I said, I'm in here crying my eyes out. So I think maybe you were right. I can be a wimp. So I'm like you. I don't like conflict. I think probably the last 2 or 3 relationships I've been in with women, as my mother got to know them, my mother seemed to like to reveal things about me as a child. And she would say, she's told all these women, Bobby never did like conflict. And I thought, well, who the fuck does? No, I don't like conflict. Why? I mean, can't we just talk about it and get it done? Why do we have to have conflict? And, you know, again, because my dad was pretty conflictual and my mother always kind of walked on eggshells to make him happy. And I did as a kid too. And so, no, I'm not big into conflict. I'm not a fighter by nature. I'm not an alpha personality. My wife, bless her heart, you know, grew up in 8 of 10 kids in poverty in Guadalajara, Mexico. Dad was an alcoholic. Her older sister beat her literally regularly until she was like 16 and told her, if you ever do it again, you know, I'll beat the shit out of you. She had to fight with neighbor kids. She's been violated and molested and I mean, just tough. And she's a tough cookie. She had to be tough. You know, and she goes to exercise class every day. She's a gym rat. She has Muay Thai. She's a lefty. I won't start a fight with her. She in every way conceivable, she's tougher than me. And you know, and I tell her, you know, in some ways, she's my role model for where the places I need to toughen up and need to be willing to have conflict and stand up for myself and deal with things. But she also says I'm her role model for teaching her how to be calmer and more patient and more open-hearted. And I love her for the ways that she is, but she kind of doesn't like the fact that she has to be so tough. And she loves me for being this kinder, gentler type person. And I'm thinking, well, I should be tougher. Well, how about if we just accept, okay, this is how I am. I could be kind of a wimp, you know. Can I love that about me? Can I love that part of me that would rather not have conflict? Can I love that part about me that doesn't go looking for a fight? Can I love that part about me that would still stand up and go to the floor for anybody that threatened my family? I would. But I would try to find some other solution first. That's me, okay? So we can love all parts about ourselves, even those parts that might have a negative connotation, like being a wimp. Okay, you know, and I know I can stand up when I need, when it's the time to stand up.
You see, so there's a few things that I'm thinking about that, and one of them I was wondering when you were talking about the kind of the needs and the wants, and getting nice guys to identify their feelings, because a lot of times they're kind of out of touch with their feelings. And then I wondered, do you use any kind of linguistic structures? Like I know nonviolent communication is good at helping people to identify what they're feeling and what their needs are that are kind of driving these feelings. And also it kind of like promotes a consciousness that doesn't necessarily label things as like, well, this guy's a wimp, or this guy's good, or this guy's bad. And then once you kind of arrive at that consciousness, then it's like, yeah, it's fine to be a wimp because it's just a word. What is really happening underneath is that I'm feeling afraid and I have needs for security and support or safety or something like that. I was wondering if you used any kind of...
You know, I really honestly just came into contact with nonviolent communication. I'd like heard of it at times in the past, but it's really only been the last couple of years that, you know, really kind of had it explained to me more in depth. And I like it as a communication style. I think words can be really important, and how we use them. So for example, what I typically do when I'm working with people, I tell them to pay attention to their emotionally laden language, because that emotionally laden, that has a charge to it. So for example, you know, a guy says, well, you know, she shot me down, you know, well, no, she had low interest in going out with you. You know, she said no to your request to go on a date. She didn't shoot you down, but your language of she shot you down, you know, all of a sudden takes on this real emotional world of itself. And so oftentimes in therapy and in groups, when I'm working with people that have this tendency to use a lot of emotionally laden language and buy into it as it is the story, it is reality. I'll do a little exercise with them. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to have you tell me the story of this emotional event, usually in which they're feeling kind of negative or done to or victimized. And I'm going to have you tell it to me in two ways. The first way is I'm going to have you tell it to me as an editorial. That you're going to editorialize this story. A lot of emotionally laden language. This situation, this guy was being a real jerk, and he went off on this other person, and blah. Editorialize the hell out of it. Read, whatever intent or motive into it you want. Then after telling the story with all the emotional language, I said, now tell it to me like a news reporter. Give me the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the how, without intention, speculation, motive, just what can be observable in the situation. A guy was walking down the street and he turned around and punched a guy. That's it. That's all you know. Now, that's a lot different story than all of, the speculation and everything. Or, if we bring it to the dating scenario, the editorial is, Robert, bought this woman drinks, and he was trying to impress her, and he listened to her tell her stories, and she seemed really interested in him, and she touched his arm a lot, and Robert was thinking how great it would be maybe if she was his girlfriend, and he thought she was really sexy, and he was doing his best to impress her, and and this and that, and then when he finally did ask her out, she shot him down, and she walked away from him, and he left standing there looking like a fool. Right? All right. Or the news story is Robert met a woman at a bar. They had a couple drinks together. He asked her out. She said no.
And nobody died.
Nobody got died. Nobody got shot, killed. Nobody got drink thrown in their face. Just right. She said no. I tell you what, life gets a lot easier if or somebody told me recently the way they like to say it is, give me the news, not the weather. Don't give me the weather report. So, if we cut out the weather report and just stick to the news, shit happens in life. It isn't always what we want. It doesn't always go the way we want, but it's usually not nearly as dramatic as we turn it into be when we make it as being about ourselves. So, okay, Robert met a woman at the bar, bought her a couple drinks. He asked her for her phone number. She said no. Robert continued to have a good night. It doesn't have to be this big drama thing. Right. So I agree with you. Language can be really important. And if we can learn to drop the drama from our language, we can communicate more clearly. And I know I had an experience just recently, a few weeks ago. As I said, my mother had a stroke a few months ago, and then had actually gone back in the hospital for a different reason. This was about a month ago. And I thought, I'm worried about her. She, when she does reply to my messages, says she's weak, she's not sleeping well. I thought I'm going to go up and just pay her a visit. And I told my wife about my thoughts and my plans, and she thought that was a good idea. And so I flew up from Puerto Vallarta, where I live, up to Seattle to spend 6-7 days with my mom. And I was glad I went. I think she needed someone to check on her. Her refrigerator was empty. She wasn't taking very good care of herself. And we went for a lot of walks. I put a lot of food in her fridge, and by the time I left, she was in much better shape. But while I was gone, my wife seemed really cool towards me. We usually send a lot of text messages, but her messages were fairly unaffectionate and flat. Now, I'm not going to use any emotionally laden words, but I could tell she was distant and something was bothering her. And I watched my tendency to make a story out of that, right? And all I did is I just kept repeating to myself, my wife is not feeling sufficiently loved by me. I didn't make it into a story, well, this or that, or, she was projecting her stuff, or I didn't do anything wrong, or blah, nothing. My mind wanted to at times, and every time my mind wanted to create a dramatic story about my wife seeming distant while I was gone, I just repeated to myself, my wife is not feeling sufficiently loved by me. So when I got back home and we were able to have a conversation about it, I said, it seemed that you were not feeling sufficiently loved by me. And she then told me two things that made her feel not sufficiently loved. I acknowledged both of them, that I could see why that would make her feel not sufficiently loved. And I said, I will try to be more attentive to those things in the future. And after a week of her seeming distant, but me not reacting and just asking, okay, you seem to not feel sufficiently loved. She told me 2 things. I listened, I acknowledged, and we got through it like in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all it took. And then, like, from there on out, she was amazingly her affectionate self, and close and physical and hugging and kissing and saying sweet things. It's just like turned like that because I didn't turn it into a dramatic story. I forced myself to keep it simple.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a kind of we can get addicted to the drama of it because it's something interesting that's happening. Maybe there's not enough kind of interesting or fulfilling things in our lives that are happening, and so you create these kind of dramas so you can just so something's happening, so it's not boring. Yeah, it really sounds like once you break that down or kind of kick that addiction, and you just use language, in a way that you're in a better relationship with reality instead of what's going on in your head. It's like you can actually get down to what's happening, and it's not such a big deal after all that.
It amazed me how quickly we got through it and how quickly she wanted to feel close to me again, that she wanted to open up to feelings.
Yeah, right.
Of love. It kind of blew me away. Like, wow, is that easy? You mean if I can manage my storytelling and projections and drama a little better, maybe we get through stuff a lot quicker. Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's so many more things that I would love to talk to you about here. I think we're probably running over by a little bit, and I want to kind of make an effort to respect your time here, even though I also want to kind of pick your brains about so many more things.
Well, we can do this again.
Yeah, well, I would like that. I still have about, say, 60% of the questions that I never even got to. I'm spinning off of the things that you were talking about. So that was super interesting. Do you have any final thoughts or final words to say on anything, any messages you like to send? I know you just got a new book out, and I just found that today. I thought that looked quite interesting.
Yeah, thank you for plugging that. If your people listening to this, if they're interested, anything we've talked about, sure, check out No More Mr. Nice Guy. My new book just came out this month. It's available right now. It's an ebook on Amazon, Dating Essentials for Men. And it came to be written exactly the same way No More Mr. Nice Guy did. When I got divorced in my late 40s, 16, 17 years ago, I didn't know how to date. I had to learn how to date. And I tried to approach it by being authentic and real and myself, and just learning to let this filled up me, attract good people to me. And it's kind of a different concept to what a lot of the dating advice is out there for men. If check out Dating Essentials for Men, No More Mr. Nice Guy. If they want to, come find my website, just go to drglover.com, drglover.com, or datingessentialsformen.com. Go poke around both of them and see if anything looks interesting.
Plenty of good material there. Is there anything finally that you would say quickly I almost forgot that we were doing a podcast for socially anxious people. Is there anything quickly you would say?
Should we give them away before we wrap up?
Sorry, we talked about No More Mr. Nice Guy stuff for the whole podcast, but yeah, if there's something, I don't know if there's anything you would say to them. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff we talked about applies.
Well, let me just say one thing. 2 things. I'll say 2 things. I am by nature an emotional introvert. I didn't know that for most of my life. I get recharged in isolation, spending alone time. But I do like being around people, but I get overwhelmed and tired easily in crowds. I actually do better standing up on the stage talking to an audience than I do in small groups and parties, mainly because of the control factor. I have more control when I'm up on the stage. And so I guess the point I want to make is that most people, I've worked with a lot of people, especially when I work around dating concept, worked with a lot of people who identify as being socially anxious, introverted, and they're not necessarily the same thing. And it's kind of like one piece that I see with people that identify in this way, it almost becomes like their burden to bear, kind of like their identity, their almost their mask that they wear. Well, I'm socially anxious, therefore, fill in the blank. I'm introverted, therefore fill in the blank. Kind of like, well, because I've got this thing, I can't really be expected to, like do these other things, like
right, almost like a protection.
Like talk to people or go to parties or walk up and introduce myself to someone or whatever. And I don't want to minimize it because it's real, but the point is everybody has to challenge themselves in life. And maybe some people have more challenges than others. Probably I'm probably, maybe I don't have as many challenges as another person. Somebody maybe that's in a wheelchair or, has, something else going on. Everybody has challenges. So instead of saying, well, because I have this thing, I can't, maybe say, okay, I have this thing and it's a challenge and I can try it. I can work at it. Everybody has to lean in to their challenge. Everybody, if they really want to be themselves and have what they want in life and live up to their potential, has to get out of their comfort zone and feel uncomfortable or anxious periodically. Everybody. And so the people that say, well, I've got this thing or I've got that thing. Okay, all right, you do. I'm a wimp, by the way. I've got that thing. And I still have to challenge myself. I still have to deal with conflict sometimes, even though it makes me pretty anxious. But I still have to. Okay. So I would say, don't let how you've identified yourself be you. All right. It's just a piece. It's just a thing. Don't let it be you. Get out of your comfort zone anyway. And then the second piece I'll add is don't do it alone. Anything we try to do alone is going to be a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging. Surround yourself with good people. Get a coach, get a therapist, get a wing buddy or, wingman, get a buddy, go to a 12-step program, go to Meetup, go, take a Dale Carnegie course. Don't try to do it alone. Go connect with other people and practice these life skills with other people and maybe with people who are a little bit further ahead than you, and they can teach you what they've learned along the way. So don't try to figure it out alone. That's way too much work. Go get good help. Yeah.
Oh, powerful words there. Well, it's been an absolute privilege for me to speak to you today. So thank you so much. You've definitely affected my life in massively positive ways that you're unaware of, and thousands, maybe millions of people out there as well. So, thank you so much, Robert Glover, for being on the podcast today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for the invitation. I had a great time and look forward to doing it again.
Excellent. Me too. All right. Take care.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. You put yourself last for a really long time, and now it's time to start putting yourself first, and you'll start to see that people will follow suit, and the people that don't shouldn't be in your life, and you can let them go. Or set up boundaries and just create a better life for yourself, because you do deserve it. And by actually taking a look at these things and not pushing them into a corner, you can actually start to improve your life and pursue your purpose, your dreams, and your passion. So stay tuned next Thursday, every Thursday. Come back for more and have a great week. Thanks.